The salt air of the marina usually calmed me, but today, the heavy scent of rusted iron and impending unemployment made my gills itch beneath my high-collared shirt. I adjusted my grip on the red plastic bucket, glancing nervously at the few tourists lingering near the boardwalk. "Stay down," I whispered, tapping the lid. "We're almost to the car." A soft thump answered me from inside the bucket. Then, the lid skewed sideways, pushed up by a round, wet head covered in peach fuzz. A chubby, iridescent blue tail slapped the plastic with a happy thwack. Bobby it," I gasped, looking around frantically. "Pip." "No. Inside. Tail down." My son, a hybrid of a prime alpha human and a deep-sea omega like myself, blinked his large, dark eyes. He reached out a chubby, webbed hand. Up. Not here, buddy. It's not safe." I pushed his little head back down gently. "Be a good fry. We'll have krill paste when we get home." He blew a raspberry but retreated into the salt water. I hurried toward the dilapidated shack I called home, nestled in a forgotten cove miles from the city center. The door groaned on its hinges as I kicked it open, the metal peeling away from the wood. Inside, it was meager but wet. A massive, second-hand clawfoot tub dominated the living room, filled with fresh seawater I hauled in daily. I popped the lid off the bucket. "Free time, Pip." With a splash that soaked my work trousers, Pip launched himself into the tub. He did a clumsy backflip, his pearlescent scales catching the dim light. I stripped off my shirt, feeling the dry, itchy skin on my back crave the moisture. I leaned over the tub, letting my hair, long, black, and usually tied up tight, fall into the water. "Hungry?" I asked. Pip slapped the water. Fishy. I grabbed the mixing bowl. "Okay," the doctor said, protein blend. 1 scoop of minnows, 1 scoop of kelp powder, 1 scoop of shrimp. I stirred the gray sludge. It smelled atrocious to human noses, but to us, it was a Michelin star meal. I climbed into the tub with him. The moment my legs submerged, the glamour faded. My skin knitted together, bones shifting with a familiar, aching relief, until a long, shimmering tail, the color of moonlight on dark waves, stretched out. Pip curled into my chest, his tiny tail wrapping around my waist. I fed him the spooned mush, watching his cheeks puff out as he chewed. "Good. Yum." He burped, a bubble floating to the surface. I grabbed the cracked smartphone my boss, Mr. Henderson, had given me. "Let's see what's happening in the ocean," I murmured, pulling up a documentary on the Mariana Trench. Pip's eyes went wide. We stayed like that for an hour, just 2 refugees from the deep, hiding in a human bathtub. But the peace couldn't last. The ocean currents had been strange lately. Too many trawlers, too much sonar. I couldn't take Pip back to the open sea yet. He was too small, too defenseless against the predators, both finned and two-legged. The next morning, the smell of stale coffee and despair greeted me at the aquarium. Mr. Henderson, a beta with a kind heart and a receding hairline, was staring at a ledger with a look of pure misery. "Morning, Mr. Henderson," I said, grabbing my mop. "Arthur," he sighed, rubbing his shiny forehead. "Put the mop down, son. We need to talk." I froze. "Is it the filtration system again? I can fix it. I just need some duct tape and, it's the bank, Arthur. We're underwater, and not in the good way. No one comes to see 3-legged turtles and a molting crab anymore." I gripped the bucket handle. "So, we're closing, unless a miracle happens." He hesitated, then slid a glossy flyer across the scratched desk. "Or, unless you do this." I picked it up. The Siren's Call, National Merfolk Performance Championship. Grand prize, $1 million. "A beauty pageant?" I asked, skeptical. "It's a talent competition," Henderson corrected. "Arthur, I've seen you swim when you think the cameras are off. You move like you were born in it. If you win, we save the aquarium. We save the turtle. We save the crab. And the salary? If you win, I'll give you a 10% cut. That's $100,000. I did the math. My current wage was barely enough for rent and shrimp. $100,000 meant a safe house. It meant premium fish for Pip. It meant maybe, just maybe, buying a boat to take us far away. "I'll do it," I said. 2 days later, I was in the heart of the city, Pip and his bucket slung over my shoulder, a bag of costumes on my back. The wind whipped through the skyscrapers, funneling down the avenue like a wind tunnel. "We're here, Pip," I whispered. "Be quiet." A gurgle from the bucket was my only reply. I pulled the registration form out of my pocket to check the address. Suddenly, a gust of wind, smelling of exhaust and ozone, ripped the paper from my hand. "No. Hey," I scrambled after it. The paper danced mockingly in the air, looping around a street lamp before fluttering down to land on the toe of a polished, Italian leather shoe. I skidded to a halt. The shoe belonged to a man who looked like he owned the pavement he stood on. He was tall, encased in a charcoal suit that cost more than my life's earnings. He bent down, the movement fluid and powerful, and picked up the flyer. "Thank you," I panted, reaching for it. "I'm so sorry." The man straightened. He was devastating. High cheekbones, eyes the color of a stormy sea, and a scent. I froze. My nose twitched. Cedarwood, sea salt, and heavy, dominant alpha pheromones. It was a scent I hadn't smelled in 3 years. A scent that haunted my dreams. He adjusted his rimless glasses, his gaze sweeping over me with clinical detachment. "You're entering the competition?" His voice was a low baritone that vibrated in my chest. I nodded, keeping my head down, praying my own scent blockers were working. "Yes. Thanks." I grabbed the paper. He didn't let go immediately. "You seem..." He paused, his nostrils flaring slightly. "Familiar. I have a common face." I lied, pulling the paper free. "Thanks again." I turned to flee, but disaster struck. Pip, sensing my agitation or perhaps reacting to the overwhelming alpha pheromones rolling off the man, head-butted the lid of the bucket. Pop! The red lid flew into the air, spinning like a frisbee, and landed with a clatter on the sidewalk. Pip's head popped up like a jack-in-the-box. He blinked, saw the tall man, and his face lit up. He reached out a chubby, wet hand, his fingers splayed. "DADA." The silence on the street was absolute. I stared at the man. The man stared at the bucket. Pip waved his arms, splashing salt water onto the alpha's expensive suit pants. Dada!" Pip screamed, his voice clear as a bell. The man's eyes narrowed. "Did that bucket just call me daddy?" "No," I shrieked, shoving Pip's head back down. "He said dada. As in, data. He loves statistics. He's a prodigy baby." "Statistics," the man repeated, his voice flat. "Yes. He loves spreadsheets." "Gotta go." I grabbed the lid, jammed it on, and sprinted away, ignoring the sloshing water soaking my back. I didn't look back, but I could feel his gaze burning a hole between my shoulder blades. Behind me, Joe Sterling, CEO of Sterling Maritime and the city's most eligible prime alpha, watched the fleeing figure. He brought his hand to his nose, inhaling the faint scent lingering on the paper flyer. "Sea breeze," he murmured. "And milk." A black sedan pulled up. His assistant, Liam, rolled down the window. "Mr. Sterling? The board meeting starts in 20 minutes. Joe got in, his face unreadable. "Cancel it. I'm going to the aquarium." The competition was a circus. The venue was a massive aquatic center, filled with cameras, lights, and screaming fans. The premise was simple. Merfolk performers, humans in silicone tails, competed in grace, breath-holding, and underwater choreography. I was contestant number 7. In the dressing room, I put Pip in a travel playpen I'd scavenged. "Stay," I commanded. "Don't make a sound." He shoved a pacifier in his mouth and grabbed his stuffed shark. "Good enough." I pulled on the costume tail Mr. Henderson had bought. It was cheap latex, stiff and uncomfortable compared to my real one, but it would have to do. "Contestant 7, Arthur. You're up for the endurance test." I walked out to the pool deck. The judges sat at a long table. The center judge was a washed-up pop star, but to his right. My heart stopped. Joe Sterling. He was looking at his phone, looking bored. He was a sponsor? Of course he was. He owned half the waterfront. "Your task is simple," the announcer boomed. "Submerge and hold your breath. The longest time wins." I sat on the edge of the tank. I caught Joe's eye. He paused, his gaze locking onto mine. He didn't recognize me yet, not with the makeup and the distance, but he was interested. I slipped into the water. Silence. The roar of the crowd vanished. This was my world. I didn't need to hold my breath. My gills, hidden along my ribs, fluttered open as the water hit them. But I had to pretend. I twisted, spiraling down to the bottom of the 20-foot tank. I settled into a lotus position, letting my hair drift like a halo. I closed my eyes and waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. For minutes. Most humans started jerking around 3 minutes. I stayed perfectly still. I watched a small filtration bubble rise to the surface. 6 minutes. I looked up. Through the distorted surface, I could see commotion. They thought I was drowning. I kicked off the bottom, spiraling up with a grace no human could mimic, and broke the surface with a gasp. Fake, of course. 6 minutes and 40 seconds, the announcer screamed. A new record. I wiped the water from my eyes. Joe Sterling was standing up. He wasn't clapping. He was staring at me with the intensity of a shark scenting blood. The competition was a viral hit. Hot Single Dad Mermaid was trending on Twitter. Mr. Henderson called me, weeping joyfully about ticket sales. But with fame came scrutiny. The producers demanded a behind-the-scenes live stream from the contestants' homes. I can't do that, I told the producer, a harried beta woman named Sarah. My apartment is. It's under renovation. Fine, she said. We'll set you up in one of the luxury suites at the hotel. Just turn the camera on, interact with fans, and look pretty. So there I was, in a hotel room that cost more than my entire aquarium, sitting on a velvet sofa with Pip. The camera light turned red. We were live. Hi, I said awkwardly, waving. I'm Arthur. This is Pip. Pip, currently wearing a shirt that said I love krill, waved a chubby fist. Hi. I looked at the tablet scrolling comments. Oh my God, the baby is so round. Is he the mom? Where's the mom? Arthur, are you single? Marry me. Look at the baby's cheeks. I want to bite them. Please don't bite the baby, I said seriously. Dada wawa. Pip pointed at the massive jacuzzi tub in the suite's bathroom. Okay, bath time. But the camera stays here. I carried him to the bathroom, leaving the doors slightly ajar so the microphone could still pick us up. I turned on the water. Splash. Pip squealed. We played for a while. I forgot about the camera. I forgot about the thousands of people watching. The warm water, the stress of the day. My eyelids grew heavy. I leaned my head back against the tile. Just a nap, I whispered. Just 5 minutes. I woke up to pounding on the hotel door. Arthur. Arthur, are you dead? I jolted awake. The water was cold. Pip was asleep on my chest, drooling. I scrambled out, wrapped a towel around my waist, and opened the door. Sarah stood there, pale as a ghost. You've been in there for 5 hours, she shrieked. The live stream went black, but the audio. Arthur, people thought you drowned. I fell asleep. The internet is losing its mind. And, she lowered her voice. Mr. Sterling is here. Who? The sponsor. The Alpha. He came personally when the feed cut out. She stepped aside. Joe Sterling stood in the hallway. He looked furious. His tie was undone, his hair slightly disheveled. The scent of distressed alpha, burnt cedar and ozone, filled the corridor, making my knees weak. You, Joe growled, stepping into the room and kicking the door shut behind him. Sarah wisely stayed outside. He marched up to me. I clutched the towel tighter. Are you insane? He hissed. You left a child unattended in a bathtub for 5 hours. I was with him. We were sleeping. In water? Do you know how easily a child can drown? He won't drown. I snapped, the omega in me bristling at the alpha's tone. He loves the water. He's safer there than anywhere else. Joe stopped, looking down at me. We were inches apart. The heat radiating off him was intoxicating. You smell, he whispered, leaning in, like the ocean after a storm. I held my breath. It's the bath salts. No, Joe said, his voice dropping to a rumble. I know this scent. 3 years ago. A shipwreck off the coast of Cabo. I was thrown overboard. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was drowning. Joe continued, his eyes searching mine. The water was freezing. And then, someone grabbed me. Someone warm. Someone who smelled like salt and milk and sunshine. You were delirious, I managed to choke out. Hypothermia causes hallucinations. I remember a cave. Joe pressed on, stepping closer until my back hit the wall. I remember being in a rut, triggered by the near-death experience. I remember. Smooth skin, long hair, and a tail. Mr. Sterling, you're imagining things. Am I? He reached out, his hand hovering over my shoulder. Then why does your son look exactly like my baby pictures? I slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. Arthur, he said, his voice shifting from anger to something pleading. If it was you, why did you run? I woke up and you were gone. I searched every island for months. Because, I yelled, tears pricking my eyes. Because look at you. You're a prime alpha billionaire in a tailored suit. I'm a guy who cleans fish tanks. And in the stories, the mermaid turns into sea foam if he stays. I didn't want to be foam, Joe. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Sea foam, Joe repeated, looking baffled. You based your life decisions on Hans Christian Andersen? It's a cautionary tale. It's a fairy tale. Joe ran a hand through his hair, laughing incredulously. Arthur, I'm not a prince, and you're not going to turn into bubbles. I'm a man who has been obsessed with a ghost for 3 years. Before I could answer, a tiny voice piped up from the bed. Dada? Honey. Pip was sitting up, rubbing his eyes. His little legs were hidden under the duvet. Joe looked at Pip. Then he looked at me. Is he? Yes, I whispered, defeated. He's yours. Joe walked to the bed. He sat down slowly, as if approaching a wild animal. He reached out a finger. Pip grabbed it with his whole hand and tried to put it in his mouth. He's strong, Joe said, his voice breaking. He eats a lot of krill. Joe looked back at me. Pack your things. What? No. I have the competition tomorrow. Forget the competition. I'll buy the damn aquarium. You're coming home. I can't just be bought, Joe. I have a life here. I have pride. Joe stood up and walked back to me. He placed his hands on the wall on either side of my head, trapping me. I'm not buying you, Arthur. I'm courting you. And I'm taking my son to a house that doesn't have black mold in the corners. The mold adds character. I muttered, but I leaned into his touch despite myself. The next few days were a blur. I refused to quit the competition. I wanted to win on my own terms, but I allowed Joe to move us into his penthouse. It had a saltwater pool. Pip was in heaven, but not everyone was happy. Lance, the runner-up favorite, was a preening beta who had clearly had too much plastic surgery. He cornered me at the dress rehearsal. So, Lance sneered, leaning against the lockers. Sleeping your way to the top, huh? I saw you get into Sterling's car. I'm staying with a friend, I said, organizing my makeup kit. A friend? Please. You're using that fat kid as a prop, and now you're using the judge to get the prize money. It's pathetic. Don't call my son fat. He's pleasantly plump. He's a freak, Lance spat. I saw him in the pool yesterday. He held his breath for 10 minutes. Normal kids don't do that. You guys are freaks. I slammed my locker shut. Careful, Lance. You don't want to find out what kind of freak I am. Lance laughed. Watch your back during the finale, Fishboy. Accidents happen. The night of the finale, the atmosphere was electric. The theme was myths of the deep. I was backstage, stretching, when I couldn't find my costume tail. Where is it? I panicked, tossing clothes aside. It was right here. Looking for this. I turned. Lance was standing by the waste disposal unit, holding my silicone tail. He pulled a pair of scissors and snip. He cut the fluke right off. Oops, he grinned. Looks like you're disqualified. Can't perform without a costume. You? I stepped forward, my hands curling into fists. Arthur, Joe's voice cut through the tension. He strode into the backstage area, Liam trailing behind him with a large, flat box. Joe took in the scene. The ruined tail, Lance's smirk, my shaking rage. Mr. Sterling, Lance said smoothly. Such a shame. Arthur seems to have had a wardrobe malfunction. Joe didn't even look at him. Liam, have security escort this man out. He's banned from the building. What? You can't do that. I'm the star. Lance screeched as 2 burly guards hauled him away. Joe turned to me. Are you okay? I can't perform, I said, my voice trembling. That was my only tail. Without it, I can't swim. I can't win the money. You don't need the money, Arthur. I told you. I need to do this. For me. To prove I can exist in this world. Joe stared at me for a long moment. Then, he knelt and opened the box he'd brought. Inside lay a masterpiece. It wasn't silicone. It was a hyper-realistic prosthetic, crafted from aerospace-grade materials, shimmering with thousands of hand-painted scales that matched my natural color perfectly. I had this made, Joe said softly, based on my memory of you. I was going to give it to you after the show, but I touched it. It was beautiful. Joe, put it on, he commanded gently. Go out there and show them what a real siren looks like. The performance was a blur of adrenaline and water. With the new tail, I didn't have to fight the drag. I moved like a torpedo, like a dancer, like a god. I spun, I dove, I leaped from the water in a high arc, the stage lights catching every scale. The crowd didn't just clap, they roared. It was a primal sound, a recognition of something otherworldly. When I surfaced, gasping for air, I looked at the judge's box. Joe was standing, clapping slowly, a possessive, proud smile on his face. I won. Perfect scores. But as the confetti fell, I didn't stay for the interviews. I grabbed Pip, wrapped him in a towel, and ran to the parking lot where the black sedan was waiting. Joe was leaning against the car. He opened the back door. "You were magnificent," he said. I was okay. I mumbled, blushing. The tail helped. We got in. The partition was up. It was just us and the sleeping baby. Joe reached across the seat and took my hand. His thumb rubbed over my knuckles. "Arthur, about the sea foam." "Yeah. I did some research. In the original story, the mermaid doesn't turn to foam if she finds her true mate." My breath hitched. "Is that right?" "Mum." He leaned in, his scent enveloping me. Heavy, comforting, claiming. "And I think we've established that the biology works." He kissed me then. It wasn't a tentative kiss. It was hungry, desperate, filled with 3 years of longing. I opened my mouth, letting him taste the salt on my tongue. A low growl rumbled in his chest, vibrating through my own body, triggering a heat I hadn't felt since that night in the cave. "Joe," I gasped, pulling back slightly. "Pip is right there. He's asleep," Joe murmured, trailing kisses down my neck to the sensitive spot where my scent gland lay. "And the windows are tinted. We're in a parking lot. I don't care. I need to scent you. I need everyone to know you're mine. No more hiding in aquariums. No more running." "I'm not running," I whispered, tilting my head to give him better access. I think I'm done running." Joe bit down gently on the junction of my neck and shoulder. A jolt of pleasure shot through me, curling my toes. "Good," he growled against my skin. "Because I bought a house." "You said that already." "No, I mean, I bought a cove. A private bay. 3 miles of coastline. Fenced off. Protected." I pulled back to look at him. "You bought the ocean?" "I bought a piece of it. For you. For Pip. You can swim whenever you want. You can be you. And at night, you come up to the house, and you be with me." Tears welled in my eyes. It was more than I had ever dared to hope for. "That sounds expensive." "I'm rich, Arthur. Get used to it." He kissed me again, deeper this time, his hand sliding up my thigh. The heat in the car rose, thick with pheromones and promise. "Home?" he asked against my lips. I looked at Pip, sleeping soundly with a smile on his face. I looked at Joe, my alpha, my mate. "Home," I said. "Drive."